Okay, yes, you guys are hanging out here on a chair. And yes, my camera just cut off on me. Okay. So, I think I was about here. I'll go back, reread, backtrack a little bit. So, I love and appreciate the quotes and sayings found within the readings. Literature is about human experiences. Literature is news that stays news. Literature, a performance in words. These readings are helping me to get to know Lit better and develop my relationship with Lit. This, in turn, will help with my own writing. I'm going to review these notes and quotes as they can help me remember what I'm aiming for in my analysis. I can refer back to these areas and remember them so as to know where I stand with my writing and analyses. Because of literature, I can write Lit and analyze Lit. So, there's a big difference between a probable analysis and a possible analysis, and there are ways that I can know for myself if I and my paper are on the side of probable or possible analysis. In analysis, probable means more likely and possible less likely. You don't want a possible or less probable, you want more probable. You want more probable and not possible, but not highly probable. You need believable and factual and enough information and meat to your analysis, or else you do not have a strong, good analysis. If you can back up your ideas and your stance or your topic with a lot of different areas like a spider web with a main center, then you have yourself a strong, good analysis. And that is probable. Also, and especially, if your points in your analysis seem obvious and thought-provoking, that makes for a good analysis as well. And I have a lot to learn in this class. You can probably tell. I think I'm a good writer, but this, I don't know. At least the intro to this class is kind of confusing and repetitive, and it's very much fact, and it's not as creative yet, I feel like. So, it's a little Okay. So I just did that. Let me just see. Just trying to see where I was reading. Here we go. That already lose my thought. Makes for okay. So far, sorry guys, we've only done like 3 things. And we have a few more. Okay, this was short, thankfully. So, notes on analysis. So, example, puzzles, recipes, and we know that pieces, or you're gonna know if you don't know, pieces, literary devices, and individual works, and then whole other lit devices, themes within lit work, themes across lit work, comparing contrasting works, so like periods, era, time. And then I need to learn how to conduct an analysis. That's obvious. Oh my gosh, excuse me. Sort out the text, so what is happening, who are the major characters, minor characters, outline the plot. Identify lit devices, so how old is the main character, characterization, what is the time period of the story, that's the setting, what is the attitude conveyed toward women in the story, that's tone, what is the rhyme scheme of the poem, that's like structure and form. Begin to draw conclusions, so what do these lit devices accomplish, like the setting develops the main character. How do these literary devices accomplish it? So the whole is like foil. How does A accomplish B in the text? Plot summary versus analysis, that's a common mistake, so careful not to fall into summary. Pivotal turn in analysis, look for it. Mistake, that's when you get lost in interpretation. You need to show how interpretation has developed. Claim and explanation is important. Sinner's actions may lead to repentance, example, the prodigal son parable. So I just thought that'd be fun to throw in there. And then I think it's motives. So define that. Still have to do that. I kind of have an idea, and I know that's not how you pronounce it, but okay. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. I have to like sift through, just like breeze over, because I don't want to miss anything. And a lot of these assignments, like more than half, seem to be like readings, papers, articles, slideshows. And that's not too fun, is it? So it should be, I think, 4 more, so we should be halfway. Yeah. Okay, so this is a discussion. Why are these so long, guys? Yikes. Oh boy. Okay. Okay, so this is about perfecting the theme and thesis. It is improbable that the main focus, analysis, and thesis is centered around World War II Germany. This is like a response to a poem. There seem to be only two possible links to World War II Germany, and this is the German bed, and the rain comes down like bullets. The main focus, rather, first begins with For Judy and Old Daughter. This is where the real focus is. You as reader of this poem can see that this poem almost acts as a letter to the daughter and from the mother. It is speaking of the mother-daughter relationship and memories between them. A much more probable topic for this poem could be something like this. How does the mother feel about her relationship with her daughter? This is much stronger of an area to focus on and talk about and analyze overall. Old to describe her daughter, using the word pay attention with an exclamation mark. Talking about jam repeatedly and repetitively, savoring the moments where her daughter and her may jam together, or that she and her daughter. That's not proper grammar. Talking about her daughter's current and future life, and much more. So, how does the mother feel about her relationship with her daughter? Parents must validate their children's adulthood. This is not strong enough of a statement nor a thesis. The mother talking about her daughter in this poem does seem to, essentially and in some aspects, validate her daughter's adulthood and maturity. She mentions her age, 19 years, and she even goes as far as to refer to her daughter as old. This is too narrow of a thesis to go off of and stand for. You need something stronger, such as a relationship. There are far more key words to this area rather than validating a child's adulthood. My sleeper, she uses the word mine, possessive. This shows a relationship. I see you. She observes her daughter, and imagines her future and what she will be like in the future and as she ages and gets older. Thus, this is a much stronger area and better thesis to use and go off with. Mothers can love their daughters. I think this to be a right statement and belief and thesis to use for this poem. The word love can hint at a relationship. It is obvious to see that the mother feels very strongly about the relationship she has with her daughter. You can sense as reader that the mother, in a way, fears the aging and growing up of her now 19-year-old daughter. The phrases For Judy and Old Daughter are used at the beginning of this poem. You can see that this poem almost acts as a letter to the daughter and from the mother. It is speaking of the mother-daughter relationship and memories between them. A probable topic for this poem could be something like this. How does the mother feel about her relationship with her daughter? This is much stronger of an area to focus on and talk about and analyze overall. Old to describe her daughter, using the word. I already said that. Kind of repetitive. Much more. Mothers can love their daughters even when they grow up and get older, leave the house and move out and start a life of their own or with someone else. The memories last in the mother's eyes. If there is a love for her child in her heart, such as this mother. Daughters must abandon their mothers when they get married. This is very much improbable. The word must is a strong word to use, especially in this statement, which is by far more opinion than statement. The statement also does not match the text. Abandon is also a strong word to use and is probably not a good word to be linked to this poem to describe a thesis. It is not said in the text. Because of all these happy memories that this daughter's mother is speaking of and reminiscing in, you as reader can see that the mother does not hold a grudge towards her daughter. Instead, you can almost feel a slight fear in the mother for the aging and moving out of her daughter. I don't think that the mother feels abandoned per se. Rather, the mother seems saddened but happy and proud of the growth and maturity of her daughter. A loving mother will feel a pang in the chest of sadness and loneliness at the growing up of their child. She wants what's best for her child. I am putting a dream in your head, quote. And another quote, let there be someone beside you, quote. She wishes her daughter well, and she wants her daughter to have someone in her life. This poem is almost a goodbye in a way. The mother has loved the relationship she has with her daughter and is ready to let someone else have a relationship with her daughter now. The mother does not feel abandoned, but she does feel a change and that it is time to move on and let her daughter grow up. She will always have the memories with her daughter. She loves her daughter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good grief, guys. Let's see if the camera's still going. And I wonder if you're still here. Okay. I'm very professional in my videos, you know? Sorry. Okay. So from Angela Carter, reading a book is like rewriting it for yourself. You bring to a novel anything you read, all your experiences of the world. You bring your history and you read it in your own terms. From John Ruskin, be sure that you go to the author to get at his meaning, not to find words. Interpretation, a setting forth of the meaning, or better, setting forth of one or more meanings. Several meanings, so the author, first readers, later readers, the meaning it has for today. Example, Hamlet and Shakespeare and losing his father and putting that in Hamlet essentially. So there's meaning in that. Also meaning in losing his son named Hamnet, I think. Similar to Hamlet. So there's a psychological meaning behind that. Should we be concerned, one might ask, with the intentions of the author? The author may be speaking when telling and expressing their intention in their work. I think it's fictitiously, deceptively, mistakenly, or unconvincingly. We inevitably see things from our own points of view. Think twice before you attribute intentions to the writer. I got a really bad hunch. Essayist is a really weird word. Didn't know that it was a thing or word. And reader relationship, like there's a relationship between the two. Example, interpretative free play or creative engagement. Any and all essays will have to be coherent, plausible, rhetorically effective. The presentation as well as the interpretation are significant. Essay is to convincingly argue a thesis. Readers need to know that you as the writer believes and understands. Readers need to know what the writer believes and understand what they believe. Readers need to know what you as the writer believes and understand why you believe it. Yeah. Inclusive work. Account for more of the details of the work. Interpretation often depends not only on making connections among various elements of the work, like for instance, among the characters in a story or among the images in a poem, and between the work and other works by the author, but also on making connections between the particular work and a cultural content. Literary work participates in a tradition. The more works of lit you are familiar with, the better equipped you are to interpret any particular work. Robert Frost quote, "A poem is best read in the light of all the other poems ever written. We read A, the better to read B. We have to start somewhere. We may get very little out of A. We read B, the better to read C. C, the better to read D. D, the better to go back and get something more out of A. Progress is not the aim, but circulation. The thing is to get among the poems where they hold each other apart in their places as the stars do." Exactly what does the poet mean when they say blank? When they are working as writers, they work by a kind of instinct, a feel for the material. Good interpretation is evidence. Readers don't expect you to make an airtight case, but you should still try. You are obliged to offer reasonable supporting evidence and take account of what might be set forth as counter-evidence to your thesis. Your essay may originate in an intuition or an emotional response, a sense that the work is about such and such, but this intuition or emotion must then be examined, and it must stand a test of reasonableness, which is a fun word. Readers expect you to demonstrate that the response is something that they can share. They may not be convinced that the interpretation is right or true, but they must at least feel that the interpretation is plausible and in accord with the details of the work, rather than say highly eccentric and irreconcilable with some details. This is why you should read every day. It grows your vocab, and it makes you confuses you. Essay, created because of interest, boredom, bafflement, annoyance, shock, pleasure, etc. Examine your response. Understand, deepen, interchange it. See an issue from all sides to as great a degree as possible. Criticize is not so much to find fault or a negative connotation, but instead to examine carefully. Criticism in Greek is verb meaning, to distinguish, to decide, to judge. Can your response stand up to doubts? Exactly what is implausible is it in it? Is implausibility always a fault? If so, exactly why? Try an exercise. This is locate counter-evidence. What can be said against your position? The best lawyers, it is said, prepare two cases, their own and the other side's. And actually have a brother-in-law who's a lawyer, which is cool. Adjust your thesis or develop a different response. Critical thinking, examining, exploring one's own responses by questioning and testing them. Habit of mind, open-mindedness, intellectual curiosity, willingness to work. Discuss the issues with others. Do research. Ask yourself, what is the essayist's thesis or yours? Does the essayist offer convincing evidence to support the thesis? Robert Frost's Stopping, which is a poem, or Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, which is a poem. Example, stopping versus going on, as stated, titled in the essay. The idea that he could be gay, uses word lovely, he was found loitering. So just examples. Support your thesis, amplify your point. Concluding paragraph, it reasserts and clarifies the writer's thesis. Is the thesis argued rather than merely asserted? And is it argued convincingly? Convincingly. So sorry. And is the evidence adequate? Okay. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Whew. I'm going to do a little sneak peek and see what else I'm up against with all of this. A lot of writing assignments this week. Just don't want this to be part 3. 4, 5, 6, 7. What's my phone going off? It feels so popular. See. It looks like probably like 10 pages if I had to guess. So, let me just talk fast maybe. Okay. Is their response something you can share? Helped you to see things may not have noticed in poem, not in close contact with the poem as you see it. Checklist, writing interpretation. Do I know the work well enough? For instance, have I looked up the meanings of words that were unfamiliar to me to offer a thoughtful interpretation? Excuse me again, I have to do that a lot. I have like stomach problems and just, it's crazy. So, to offer a thoughtful interpretation. Hello, person. Okay. To offer them. Okay. Have I discussed the work with classmates, or at least argued with myself so that I can reasonably believe that my interpretation makes sense? What is my thesis, my main point? Can I state it in a sentence? Have I supported my thesis with evidence using brief quotations from the text? Have I taken account of evidence that may seem to contradict my thesis? Have I kept my audience in mind? Have I given credit to all sources for borrowed words and also for borrowed ideas? Plagiarism, see pages 3, 27 to 29. Okay. Let's see what we're at again. What are we at? Okay. This makes me sad. I don't wanna shake you like a leaf, but it makes me sad because this is taking forever and this is probably not very well done. But okay, I always take a lot of notes from the readings and I really appreciate this reading assignment. I will ask myself several questions as I write and complete my analysis paper. Some of these questions stem from the readings. What is my thesis, and can I state it in a sentence? Also, have I supported my thesis with evidence? Have I used brief quotes from the text? One very important question to ask as a writer of an essay or analysis paper is this: have I kept my audience in mind? This is a vital question to ask. If we ask ourselves this question and critique our writing and put ourselves in our reader's shoes, we can dissect our writing and analysis and see if it makes sense, look for holes and needed changes, etc. These are all very important points to consider and work on, and I will use these questions as I write and complete my analysis paper. Now this I do remember because I was really cramming all of my Saturday assignments in one day. So, a cowboy's hat. What symbol better to represent this iconic individual than his own hat? So that's a title and a thought from the student, and then to analyze it a little bit. Based on the title, you know that this tale is about two nouns, a cowboy and a hat. You know that the hat is possessive and belongs to the cowboy. Hopefully the hat's not like possessed though. Yeah. Thus, you as reader can see that these two things are related. This is a perfect thesis as it is about both the cowboy and the hat. This makes it strong. We as reader of this poem, and analysis will want to know what is so special about a cowboy's hat, and we will find out what this hat means to the cowboy and how it makes him, him. The title screams at its readers the question, what is so great about this hat? And this thesis will tell us the answer to this question. Something else to analyze is this: to a loose wise. The text accomplishes this satire through exaggeration, characterization, and contrast, showing that pride and perceived superiority are greater sins than poverty. My thoughts: this is a strong statement with several details, and this makes it for a solid and smart thesis. Mentioning that this poem is a satire will prepare readers for the feeling and vibe of the poem. Saying in the thesis that the poem is symbolic will help readers to look for the symbolism in and of and throughout the poem. To mention symbolism first thing is strong. This makes it a strong thesis. We already have the symbolism, and it will be much easier to look for it and learn from it, and learn more about it. we can see that this is going to be a strong analysis because it has a strong valid thesis. So now, that was repetitive, so don't have to do that. And now, moving on, let me see if that was what I just did. Okay. Sadly, guys, this is 1, 2, 3, I guess 4.5 pages. I'm not really describing these things very well, and I feel like I'm a little bit rushed. Like, why do I want to rush myself right now? Sorry, it's been a crazy day already, and it's not over yet. But okay, so this is conducting an analysis, more discussion and opinion, and I'm just gonna go. Listening to the poem is a much different experience than reading it yourself. I found it harder to follow the poem listening to it. There are so many unique words and such a different dialogue that it can make it hard to follow and understand. I also noticed as I was listening that there was a lot of sarcasm that I wouldn't have inserted if I were reading it to myself, by myself, without listening to it. I did, although, enjoy listening. It was a fun experience and it was neat to hear. So you were able to hear the poet, whatever. I tried only pausing where I was supposed to pause rather than at the end of the line. It was very interesting yet awkward to do this and try reading the poem this way. I much rather prefer the version where I was listening to the poem rather than this way of reading it, where I stop and pause only at the end of the line. It was harder to follow and comprehend and understand the poem and the words in the lines. I found myself even sometimes rereading, trying to put together the pieces because the pausing would confuse me. I did notice as I read that talking in an accent helped, perhaps because of the unique verbiage that almost needed or called for an accent like that. I still prefer the way that the writer read it, though. My notes on the poem. So the creepy thing, the loose, the los, is ugly, so the wearer is too. Is the loose, los, as vain as its host? And is Jenny devoted to the loose, los, and the symbolism of it? So step 1, preparing for analysis. So this is just like notes, different areas. The different sections of the poem seem to go back and forth between telling the story and talking about symbolism, talking about the appearance and personality of the los, and also warning Jenny about her vanity. Step 2, paraphrasing. To paraphrase the whole poem, essentially, Jenny is like this los, and this los is like Jenny. Both are vain, and the los feeds off of Jenny's vanity and just adds to it. Diction. I think that this poem consists of and is made up of such unique dialogue and at times hard to understand language because it adds to the sarcasm and satire of the poem. So it is its overall vibe and feeling. Figurative language is step 4. The loose and Jenny's appearance are the main and biggest symbols. Now step 5, the literary devices. The poem is repetitive in some areas, like "Oh Jenny" is said more than once, as are several other lines and phrases. This is an emphasis, and it really makes the reader think, ponder, and analyze the importance of and the why of the repeating words and phrases, their importance. Step 6, metrical patterns and rhyme schemes. There is a rhyming pattern. Though it doesn't seem a pattern, it seems more random. Also, the rhyming in some areas is close to rhyming, but not completely an exact rhyme. There's a crazy kid downstairs, so I hope you're enjoying the sound effects. Alright, step 7 is tension, paradoxes, and ironies. So example, the los has a personality when it is just a simple creature. All of these words to describe a simple creature, relating it all to a vain person. So, meter and rhyme, I was just like analyzing some things. 3 different areas, looks like. So, just really quickly. So this is a rhyming pattern in and throughout this poem, or there is. Though it doesn't seem pattern, it seems more random. Also, the rhyming in some areas is close to rhyming, but not completely an exact rhyme, so kind of already said that. An example of an almost rhyme is squaddle and spraddle. These 2 words are not even real words. They are describing words used, or in this case, made up, to describe both the los and the los's host, Jenny. More of a true rhyme is this from the poem. Now had you there, you're out of sight. Below the fragile, snug and tight. Now faith, you'll be right. You'll know be right. These phrases are telling the story of how the los is out of sight for now, and that Jenny's vanity is very obvious and clearly in sight. The rhyming and the unique, fun language of this poem make for an interesting read. If this poem did not include rhyming words, I believe that the poem would be harder to follow and harder to understand. What with the unique verbiage, thanks to rhyming, this poem is understandable and fun to read and ponder. So analyzing if the los were literal. literal. What does paradox mean? Paradox means, according to definition, a statement that may seem contradictory but can be true, or at least make sense. And what does irony mean? By definition, irony means a contrast or incongruity between expectations for a situation and what is reality. This is a poem of satire. The poem as a whole is irony and paradox. The concept of a loose relating to a person, a vain person at that, is in and of itself irony and ironic. Let's say that this poem is literal, and that this Jenny character really did have a loose on her person / atop her head. Could the loose spy, as the poem states and believes? People could spy into Jenny and see the loose, or the loose could spy from Jenny's perspective, here, which it seems to be able to do quite well. It is ironic that the loose has a similar personality and vanity to that of Jenny. More irony. The loose is vanity, Jenny's vanity. Can a real loose be vain? This loose can. The loose is satire and irony. When I was annotating and taking notes for this assignment and on this poem, I really pondered the section diction. I think that this poem consists of, and is made up of, such unique dialogue and at times hard to understand language because it adds to the sarcasm and satire of the poem. It is its overall vibe and feeling. I remember when I was trying out the activity where I was to pause after every line when saying it out loud. I was having difficulty concentrating and following the poem's happenings. I tried only pausing where I was supposed to pause rather than at the end of the line. It's very interesting yet awkward to do this and try reading the poem this way. I much rather prefer the version where I was listening to the poem rather than this way of reading it, where I stop and pause only at the end of the line. So it was harder to follow and comprehend and understand the poem and the words and the lines. I found myself even sometimes rereading, trying to put together the pieces because the pausing would confuse me. I did notice as I read that talking in an accent helped, perhaps because of the unique verbiage that almost needed or called for an accent like that. I still prefer the way that the writer read it though. This poem is made up of very interesting and unusual language. I learned that language such as the language used in this poem can create a deep feeling of lightness and satire, which is sarcasm. Okay. Let's see where we're at. Probably gonna have to be a part 3 because now I'm really getting into this and having fun, and I have to go through with this, guys. I mean, I started this series and I can't cheat. Oh, I can't even see that. Is that 21 or 27? That's 27. I'm a professional, guys. This is so high quality. But okay, just one more assignment and it's like 2 pages. Cliffhanger. I'm gonna go now. Okay.